It ain't the left side or the right side, and it must be the fin side. Inside. It ain't the left side.
Thank you, Solo D. Welcome to another episode of On the Fin Side here with Kat and Paul. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Also, check out our merch store, onthefinside.threadless.com. We're joined here tonight by Nick Wojton from USA Today's BillsWire. He has been kind enough to join us here. You can follow him on Twitter at Nick, N-I-C-K, _Wojton. That's W-O-J-T-O-N on Twitter. So, Nick, thanks for joining us here tonight. Tell us a little bit about what you've got going on there with the BillsWire.
Yeah, thanks for having me. First and foremost, guys, I appreciate it. Anytime you need anything. And, of course, because you guys nailed my last name, too, I didn't have to give you any corrections at all, so I appreciate that. We got a couple of things brewing for us, much like you guys in Miami. We're looking more towards the future now. So two prominent names. One of them you guys are very familiar with. We have a couple stories up about Charles Clay. I'll tease one for tomorrow. I got, first and foremost, 10 potential replacements for Charles Clay because it's not going too pretty for him this year in Buffalo. I also wrote a column on himself and LaShawn McCoy, why the Bills should potentially move on from him, and one that's already up, might sound familiar from the one I teased, but 10 potential replacements for LaShawn McCoy. So could be some changes coming in Buffalo. Like I hear there could be some changes going on in South Beach. So that's kind of a couple things we got brewing right now on BillsWire.com.
You bet. Be sure to check those out. And while we're on Charles Clay there, good way to start the show. I believe this is his fourth year in Buffalo. Obviously, I think he signed a 5-year, $48 million contract a few years ago when Rex Ryan was there. What has that experience been like? I know he's been a little bit of a disappointment, like you said.
Yeah, personally, I think, Kat, that Charles Clay, up until this year, I've been a little bit of a supporter of him, if you will. I've never thrown him under the bus. I mean, he's never been a part of a prolific passing offense with the Bills. I mean, he went from Tyrod Taylor to now, well, this year it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. We got Josh Allen right now. We had Nathan Peterman for a time, and we thought maybe A.J. McCarron even. Excuse me. But even when he was with Tyrod Taylor, he was kind of pretty reliable of a guy, always in the top 1 or 2 of catches or yards, and then all of a sudden this year he gets fall off a cliff. We're still searching for where Charles Clay is. 21 catches, that's about half of what he's used to. Kind of always had a little bit of an injury bug that have kind of rubbed fans the wrong way. And I think really what the biggest problem is almost something that's not really in his hands. You guys have a similar issue, not so much this year, but in years past when guys like Rob Gronkowski come to town. And Gronk, he's a Buffalo native, and he just comes in with the big, bad, evil pass and just eats up the Bills. 100 yards, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns. And you got Charles Clay, who's getting maybe 4 catches for 40 yards, a good blocker, a good all-around player. And then this year, it really just fell off a cliff for Charles Clay. And then all of a sudden now it's really looking like he could be packing his bags in the offseason. And a lot of it has to do with that contract that you mentioned. His dead cap hit drops from, I believe, somewhere between $11 million and $13 million to about $2 million next year. So it's looking more and more likely. He was inactive last game, and we'll see this game if he plays at all again. So,
yeah, and looking at the rest of the Bills' offensive weapons, Shady McCoy may not be here next year. Charles Clay may not be either. Kelvin Benjamin was released earlier this year. So I know Zay Jones has taken over kind of as that leading receiver. How do you see the Bills' running backs and receivers, without giving too much away, looking here in 2019?
Well, in 2019, it's going to be tough to say because I think they have to make I guess wholesale changes, if you will. You mentioned Zay Jones. He's going to be around. He's a young guy, second year. Really, him alone, if you look at him, not to get too deep in it, he had some crazy off-season issues out in L.A. We was running around naked, literally in a hotel. He was injured this off-season, came right as a rookie from the draft, and you kind of have that thing with rookies where they don't get a full off-season, they say. So he was injured, went through some crazy stuff. He's never really had a full off-season to prepare. He's been hurt. So I'm hoping for another step forward with him. Outside of Zay Jones, all of a sudden you had nobody. And then all of a sudden this guy, Robert Foster, man, he's come out of nowhere. If he gets 40 more receiving yards than Zay Jones in this final game against Miami, he's actually going to end the season as Buffalo's leading receiver. I think he has about 529 yards, 39 yards, behind Zay Jones. He made the team out of training camp. His first 5-6 games, he only had 2 catches, and they both came in one game. And then that's what really says about his second stint with the team. He got caught and went down to the practice squad. The guy's taking the team by storm. I don't know what it is. He's an undrafted rookie from Alabama, and the guy's just great. He's a speedster. He's everything that they didn't have. So we're hoping that, some teams don't get tape on him and all of a sudden figure him out, because he's been great. Aside from those 2 guys, I mean, it's a real crapshoot everywhere across the board. I mean, tight end right now, if we don't see Charles Clay against Miami, we're going to see Jason Kroom. He's another undrafted guy from not this past offseason, but last offseason. Depth wide receivers, we need a total overhaul there, and really we're looking for just anything as a number 1 wide receiver, because it's been sort of a dead pool with number 1 wide receivers in Buffalo, dating back to Sammy Watkins and whatnot.
Right, and looking at the Bills, obviously the big news is Josh Allen this year. And last game against the Dolphins started to show a lot of his potential. 231 passing yards, 135 rushing yards, just an inch away from pulling out that big road victory. So just one game left, and it could send Bills fans into the offseason with a really good taste in their mouth with Josh Allen. What is the feeling on him after his first year? Is it kind of what you expected, or were there really no expectations?
Really, it's been sort of an interesting, I refer to the quarterback situation as a roller coaster. I think Josh Allen himself has sort of been a roller coaster, because the Bills season has been over since maybe just before the midway point, right? So at that point, once Allen returned to the lineup, it's been everything about him, regardless what the defense does, regardless what anyone else does. So if Allen has a good game, then everyone's feeling good. Even if they lose, even after the last game against the Dolphins, Allen played pretty well, as you mentioned. So the Bills lost, but everyone was puffing their chest out in Western New York about that game, because Allen played good. But to answer your question, I think he definitely leaves a little bit to be desired with his arm. Against the Lions, they squeaked out a win, but it was nothing like, say, the Dolphins game, where Allen did a lot of damage with his legs. That game, he only had 16 rushing yards. The Bills pulled out the 14-13 win, but he did everything with his arm, so that was encouraging. Last week was a little bit of a step back in regards to the roller coaster I mentioned, but they were on the road playing the Patriots, so we're hoping for a little bit of a better results this week, just in regards to the Allen meter, if you will. And really the one thing that folks are hoping in the future that he cleans up is his completion percentage. He's at about 50%. But as your prior question, Kat, if they get some better guys around him, that completion percentage is going to go a little bit up.
Certainly. Moving along to the defensive side of the ball, too. I mean, this is a unit that doesn't have a lot of flashy names, except maybe former first-round pick Tre'Davious White. But you look at the rankings, they're number 1 in total defense. They're number 1 against the pass. They're better than middle of the pack against the run. Is this where you see the Bills building from here in the future?
Yeah, I think they definitely have a tiny hole or two. As we mentioned, the undrafted rookie Robert Foster from Alabama. We have another one from Alabama in Levi Wallace. He's actually the second ranked, I just saw it today from Pro Football Focus. He's the second best graded rookie cornerback in the NFL. He's an undrafted guy from Alabama. He's starting across from Tre'Davious White. And actually, over probably since the last time the Bills played the Dolphins, Tre'Davious White has actually struggled a little bit. Of course, he's still a very prominent player, and we expect him to bounce back. Played a little better last week. But, this defense has really been the cornerstone since Sean McDermott took over. You guys will remember when Rex Ryan was in town, every time Jay Ajayi touched the ball and the Bills were on the other side of the field, there was just no tackling him, it seemed, for a while there. So he really shored up the run defense. The front seven, Lorenzo Alexander, a linebacker, no way he's 35. I'm not convinced of it because he does not play like it. Matt Milano's another budding star in the NFL, and Tremaine Edmonds' athleticism is really just through the roof. Couple rookie mistakes here and there as a linebacker, but in regards to the defensive line, they're just about average right now. They need, like a lot of teams do, they need a pass rusher. They need Trent Murphy's just been a little bit too dinged up across from Jerry Hughes. It's been just lately. The last time the Bills actually had a sack from a defensive lineman, it was on Ryan Tannehill, the last time that we faced you guys. So it's been a few weeks. So yeah, it's been about 3-4 weeks. Jordan Poyer broke the streak of sackless completely last week, but of course he's a safety. And not to forget to mention them, the safety duo of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer is really going to be the cornerstone of this defense moving forward. But yeah, we need maybe one more pass rusher to share us up, which is going to be interesting when we get to the draft, right? It's so defense heavy. So that's I guess the rundown for the Bills defense there. It's definitely going to be what you're going to lean on here in Buffalo, especially developing a quarterback moving forward.
So, Nick, I would have hesitated to ask you this if the Dolphins won last week and were still alive for the playoffs. But I can ask you now because it's not mocking the Bills in any way because the Dolphins are in the same position. Right now, Buffalo would be picking 7th in the NFL draft. Could get as high, if my calculations are correct, up to about 4, but could drop down to about 10. So as a fan, obviously, you always want the Bills to beat the Dolphins. But in your head, as far as draft position, do you want the Bills to win this game?
Truthfully, less. I want them to win more, this year than in, say, years prior. Really, it comes down to that quarterback position. If the Bills lose this game and get to number 4, there is a 0% chance that they draft a quarterback, of course. So having said that, it's a little bit of flexibility where I won't hate it as much as they win. But I think, of course, any journalistic or judgmental person right down the middle of the line, you want to say, all right, if they lose this game, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? And maybe they can get to number 4. The team that the Bills probably want to jump maybe is in regards to things needed. I mean, the Giants probably up in front of us. They probably need some playmakers. And it's going to be the real interesting decision with the Bills. Just really the decision they make in the first round, Cat, is going to be very interesting because, as I mentioned, they really need a pass rusher up front. It's been 3-4 games since the defensive lineman has gotten a sack, right? So this draft is so heavy in pass rushers and defensive linemen. Do they go that route, or do they wait until maybe number 7? And a lot of mock drafts right now that are coming out have the Bills getting the pick of the litter as the first offensive player at number 7. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm really interested to see how this plays out, and we'll know by Monday where the Bills and the Dolphins and everyone are picking. And I'm anxious to see what happens.
You're exactly right, because if you look at the top consensus 10 to 15 players in the NFL draft as we stand right now, of course it's going to change. You're going to find about 9 out of the 10 or 13 of the 15 are offensive or defensive linemen, and mostly defensive linemen. So it's a good year to need a pass rusher on guys like Cleveland Farrell from Clemson and a few other ones that are going to pique a lot of teams' interest there in the top 10. So, Nick, what is your prediction for this game? How do you see it going down?
I think I'm gonna give a little bit of redemption to Josh Allen in this one. I really jumped out of my seat, I have to say, when Charles Clay dropped that pass in the end zone. I thought the pass, if we're gonna break down that last pass, it could have been better from Allen. But I mean, you guys got Robert Quinn and a bunch of other guys chasing after this guy in the backfield. He's running, going left down, up right, and he just heaves one down the field, and there's no one near Charles Clay, and he drops it. So I'm going to go, I'll keep it a little bit lower scoring, maybe like 21-14. We'll give a touchdown edge to Buffalo in this one. Usually not a homer, but I got to give this one to Josh Allen because, my heart broke for him on that one play. It was almost like the all-around play from Allen, the game. He did it with his legs, did it with his arms, and then one Charles Clay drop short.
And it was in the Dolphins locker room afterward. They were shocked at what Josh Allen brought to the table in terms of his potential. Because I'll tell you what, the reason that Charles Clay was that wide open in the end zone is because Nickelback Bobby McCain started cheating up toward the players that were underneath because they thought there's no way in heck Allen's going to be able to throw the ball all the way across the field and get the ball to Charles Clay. And as soon as he did, he was just either an inch short or, I think the ball should have been caught, frankly. So, what'll be the story of this game, and it will be fascinating, is how the Dolphins adapt to that now that they know the arm strength and the potential that he brings to the table.
Yeah, and that's actually the same thing on the flip side there. This is the first game in Allen's career where he's facing a team for the second time. When they played the Jets, it was in the first round, Bills versus Jets, was the Matt Barkley heroic performance of nobody on earth saw coming, where they just smoked the Jets with Matt Barkley at quarterback. And then the first time they played the Patriots, was on Monday Night Football with Derek Anderson. So this is the first time that Josh Allen's going to get an opponent that's seen him already, and that he's seen an opponent already. So it's a little bit of a storyline, if you will, underneath it all to follow for both sides, really.
And Matt Barkley was signed to a 2-year contract extension. Obviously, he'll be the backup next year. Josh Allen will be the starter. So no merry-go-round next year for Buffalo. Looks like that's one position that's certainly set in stone for 2019. Nick, thanks for joining us here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, after Nathan Peterman, I'm not surprised that they jumped right on Matt Barkley and got a backup that can play.
Yeah, well, hey, Nathan Peterman's on the Raiders practice squad with John Gruden now. We'll see how that works out for him.
What could go wrong, right?
Yeah. Nick, thanks for joining us here for this breakdown of the Buffalo Bills roster as they take on the Miami Dolphins in Week 17 in Buffalo. You can follow him at Nick_Wojton. That's WOJTON. And also follow him with the USA Today BillsWire. Nick, thanks again for joining us. I would say good luck this weekend, but that wouldn't be true because you're a Bills fan. So
right back at you guys. But I definitely appreciate you guys having me on, and anytime.
Same here. And you can follow Paul and I on the Fin Side on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and on Spotify. Check out our merch store too on thefinside.threadless.com. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the Fin Side. Solo D, take us home.
It ain't the left side.